welcome everyone to the Vintage Mini Bike Lovers Podcast. I'm Ben Thomas, your host, and I'd like to introduce my co-host and producer, Mike LaPierre. Mike, why don't you join us for a moment?
Hey there, how are we doing tonight?
Also introducing Rob Hilditch and our live guest today, Jim Leighton. Mike is host and producer of the Vintage Snowmobile Podcast and Muscle Car Podcast. The Vintage Snowmobile Lovers Podcast airs every Thursday night at 9 p.m. And the Vintage Muscle Car Podcast, I call it the Vintage Muscle Car Podcast. Actually, it's not really the Vintage Muscle Car Podcast. It's all muscle cars, but there's a lot of vintage cars, obviously. And that airs every Wednesday night. We've been collaborating for the past several weeks to put this podcast together, and I really appreciate Mike's efforts in that regard. Also joining us is our good friend Rob Hilditch, and Rob is an independent AMSOIL dealer and motorsport enthusiast. Thank you very much, Rob, for joining us.
Glad to be here.
And with regard to the podcasts that Mike does, if you're a regular subscriber of these podcasts, you may see some things that we do that look a little familiar. But if you're not a regular subscriber, I would encourage you to reach out and subscribe to his various channels. He does primarily these through various Facebook outlets, when the Facebook interface is cooperating with our podcast interface. But then he runs those through his Wheels, Keels, and Snowmobiles. Please look in the description for all those links. Our tentative podcast schedule for this summer is going to be the second Sunday of the summer months, running through the month of September, and it will be at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We're hoping that we'll be able to stream this podcast live on some of the other channels when that glitch gets worked out. Mini bikes have been woven into the American landscape for well over 50 years. The podcast intends to delve into some of these stories of the modern day vintage enthusiasts and collectors alike. And each podcast will include a live guest and the show and tell of mini bikes, as well as the viewing of other various mini bike content. And without further ado, I'd like to bring Jim into the mix and welcome, Jim. Thank you very much for joining us on the podcast.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Now, I had the pleasure of watching you a couple of times now on the Vintage Snowmobile Podcast, and, my tongue was hanging out and I was drooling every time you went around the back of the shop, and we were kind of joking behind the scenes that we needed to do a remote podcast from your locale so that we can really enjoy the full breadth of what you have to offer there.
That would be exciting. That would be great.
Yeah.
There's so much to give up here, to see, so...
How did you actually get started with mini bikes, Jim?
So on the mini bike side of things, I'm not, I don't know a lot about the vintage things. The mini bike side of it, I love it. So motorcycles in general, I grew up here in Limestone, and we had a motocross track that we had racers on all over Maine, New Hampshire, all over Canada that used to come and race here. I want to say in 1981, we were ranked the top 100 track in one of the top 100 tracks in the United States and Canada. And it was right down behind my house. It's something that we grew up with the dirt bikes. And of course, that stuff started with, I don't know, I guess maybe it wasn't mini bikes per se, but I think my first rides was on a little Articat mini bike, like I kind of actually just the last one I purchased was something like that little bike that I've got, the last one I got. That was kind of my first chance to getting on actually a mini bike and going. That was probably, I don't know, I bet I was 6 or 7. The local farmer it was a young lady that had it, and he would keep her tank full of gas as long as everybody in the little community could get a chance to ride. And so everybody had fun with that.
That's awesome.
She had a little Articat.
And you have pretty strong family ties to various motorsports, right? Your family raced?
Do. Yeah, my father raced about everything that he could race. He did hydroplanes. He raced snowmobiles. He raced dirt bikes, horses. He raced. The only thing that I don't ever remember him really getting into racing was stock cars.
Yeah, and you have some children that have raced, right?
No, the racing thing was kind of gone. Me and my daughter would go to some radar runs, and we'd take some of the old sleds out, and we would try to, we'd do that once in a while when they were running pretty hot. But that was about as far as we were able to get into it with her as far as racing. But she loves motorcycles and mini bikes, and
No,
you'll see the first mini bike that she ever
let's
had a road.
let's put that on. And I think
There
this
it
is
is.
your granddaughter, Catherine, right?
That's my granddaughter, Catherine. She's 5 years old. That little mini bike that she's on was the very first mini bike that I ever got and built. And I think my daughter was around 3 years old when I built that for her. And she put a lot of time on it.
Nice. So you're going to pass that on to the next generation, huh?
Yeah. So it's here. And I actually built my granddaughter one. She has, of course, she's a little bit small for it, but she has like a newer style little dirt bike that I put training wheels on for her.
Yeah. Do you have that in the shop? Let's break into some of the show and tell, if you would.
And while he's switching his camera, we do have comments that have come in. I'll read those real quick while he's doing that. Our good friend BCJ Vids is saying, hello, friends. Also, our co-host from the Muscle Car Show and Tell podcast is here with us tonight, Virgil Shaw, saying hello. Thank you for being with us, Virgil, for this premiere episode. Also, a mutual friend to most of us here, Rich Shad is in the house. Also, Mike Whiteside, regular viewer of both the Vintage Snowmobile podcast and the Muscle Car podcast. Our Archive Stereo is in the house saying, hey, good to see you. Nice to see you. Ken Crozier is in the house. He's saying Ken is here, too. I believe that's a friend of yours, isn't it, Ben?
Yes, Ken's a vintage snowmobile guy, and he has a very rare, very old, and I think it's rare Polaris trail tractor. And we'll feature that on the podcast in the future.
Wonderful. Well, I see that that Jim is ready. Let's put him full screen here. Yeah, here we go.
How's that? Does that look all right?
That looks excellent. That's the Chelsea Mobile, huh? That first mini bike that you built.
That was the first one. Yeah, I got it from a friend of mine's son had it downtown here a long, long time ago, and so I got it from him, and I stripped it all down and painted it and got it running. This is the exact same way that it was when I built it for her when she was 3. I haven't done anything to it since. So it's I haven't actually put any fuel in it for quite a while and started it, but it'll start up and go if I wanted it to, like everything else, take a little tweaking to clean it up and get it going. So
that's what keeps us moving. All those little tweaks needed.
Right. That's hers. I had her name put on it in the front.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then I got a granddaughter. She's aching up on 2.5, 3 years old. So I decided that I found this one, and I wish I know, like I said, I love these old bikes, but I don't know a lot about the old frames and what they're.
I have a confession to make. It's really hard to tell several of these apart. That we have some experts out in the mini bike forum field, and I'm going to be doing a segment in the future. I'm hoping of Ask the Expert, so we can actually have some Q&A about some of the identifications. So many of the manufacturers were kind of borrowing styling cues from the other manufacturers because everybody wanted to get in the game. It was big money, the motorsports and the recreational motorsports. So I think there's a lot of crossover for parts. Some of the manufacturers use the same parts. So for me, it's very difficult to tell them apart.
Yeah. This one, I remember a long time ago asking out on the mini bike forums, because I had thought initially that it was a little Indian, but that's not the case. But I do not remember what they told me that it was at that time. But neat little bike for her, someday when she's ready to just jump on and have fun with a little mini bike thing instead of the little dirt bike deals. But so I built that for her, so she'll have that later on, or it'll
Very
be
nice.
like one in the background and hang in the roof of the ceiling of my garage and just always be here. So
maybe some of our viewers can help ID that one.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it's I love the little handlebars that are like the little trunk bars, right? They fold down to supposedly this thing so it would fit in the trunk or something of a vehicle. I'm not sure,
Right. I think that was part of the gimmick, is that it was easily transported.
Yeah. So love that little thing. How that does that. I've got a little. I got this. I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. Was in really bad shape, and so I brought it home and stripped it down, and I powder coated the frame and had the tank and the fenders painted. Then I've been just kind of puttering with it a little bit, but there's just so many other things to work on and do that sometimes you just lose track and it gets set in a corner.
Sure.
But this is a little Thunderbolt, a Fox Thunderbolt 198, little mini cycle. So that I thought that was pretty neat little bike. I had an opportunity to get it from a guy in town here, and so I decided to pick that up and try to make it look a lot better than what it did.
It looks really nice. You're coming along right there.
So,
no, we're getting a question coming in asking, this is from your son, by the way, Ben, asking about the Predator motor, wanting to know the size.
Oh, the one that's on this little one here is a 79cc. I didn't want to get, of course, the 212 and the 79cc, they're the same. I mean, you go to Harbor Freight, they're the same cost, right? But
right.
I took this little bike and I put a 212 on it and just left it stock, and I took it for a ride and I go, nope, that's too much for her to start off with. So I went and bought this little 79cc one just to put on it, to, you know, just so it pulls her around but doesn't get crazy.
Yeah, there's actually some tweaks you can do to the 212 to even make it that much faster.
Well, let's take a look at that.
Yeah, there you go.
Nice.
So I, you know, of course you buy kits offline and you don't know what you got. So, you know, everything needs a little tweaking. So obviously the muffler, I'm going to have to pull apart, heat up and tweak and make it right to fit in this little bike. But, so, you know, I pulled this one apart, this motor apart, and, you know, done some things to it and to make it go a little faster, I guess. I just actually got done. I think you've seen some stuff on my Facebook where I was out to my cousins at the lake. And
I did see that.
It was a 196, I think, on one of those little Coleman mini bikes. So, you know, we pulled the governor, we put a McCuney style carb on it, and, you know, we did a few little things like that to it just to make it go so we can actually go a little faster. So, but this little Rupp right here, I got about a year ago. Just got a phone call and said, hey, I got something for you. I want to swing by the farm and pick it up. And so I figured it was something snowmobile related until I got there and they showed me the mini bike. And so it's
awesome.
I don't know. I think it's probably early 70s, I'm assuming. Some of the parts out of some of the wasteful parts out of the Predator 212.
I think some of our viewers are coming through with some identification. I saw a flash across the screen. My good friend, the Mini Bike Maniac, I like to refer to him lovingly as Encyclopedia Tom. Przyojski. He is a very knowledgeable gentleman about identifying mini bikes, and he says that purple bike is a Fox Sprite frame with what looks like Honda forks. Thank you for that, Tom. I appreciate that.
It looks like a what now? I'm sorry.
It's a Fox Sprite frame, he's pretty sure, with what looks like Honda forks.
Oh, okay. Somebody probably did some changing way back in the day then.
Very common, obviously. Yeah.
And then we've got a new comment coming in from Gregory about that Rupp we were just looking at. He says it's a 1970 Rupp Scrambler.
70 Rupp Scrambler. Good. That's good to know. See, I wish I knew. I when we start talking about bombardiers, I can pretty much tell you whatever you want to know. But when it comes to mini bikes, I just know that I like them.
Sure.
So this was, I just actually sold this to Alex. This little Arctic Cat. Actually, it's going to go to my brother's place down in Auburn, and he's going to get it. He's going to get it taken down to him in New York.
Very good.
I sent him the tank and the headlight. He kind of wanted that ahead of time, so hopefully you know, they didn't break and get dented. But so that is going off Tuesday morning to going to head downstate so that Alex can take that and do whatever he's going to do to rebuild it. The funny thing about it is I was looking at the one that I just got, and I noticed it had a toolkit under the seat. So I looked at this one, and it's got a tool under the seat. And this one here, I took the tools out. They actually are in there and in the pouch.
No kidding.
And he tells me that that's very, very, very rare.
Wow.
All the mini bikes he's got like 3 toolkits out of all the mini bikes he's got. And this toolkit here is in really good shape. And the one I'll show you here, this is the bike that I just got that I've been after for like 5 years. This is a toolkit here. I just left it out.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
There's still plastic on the pliers.
Wow.
It's still got the chain links, the spare chain links that it would have came with. And it's just crazy. And that had that. I noticed it while it was hanging here, you know. Then I zipped it open and that's brand new stuff was in it. So I thought, well, that was pretty neat. That must not be very rare, but he says that it is very rare.
Alex is very knowledgeable about the Articats, and he has a very nice collection, and he's agreed to do some feature videos. He would be somebody I'm hoping we can have on the podcast in the future as well.
Yeah. So this little bike, I've been after it I've known its existence for about 4 or 5 years, and I've been after it. He was a, you know, I work in the real world at the, you know, I run the water and sewer district here in Limestone. And this gentleman that had this bike, he actually did the same thing in the neighboring town. And this bike was his wife's bike. So I've been talking about it for quite some time. And he finally called me. They're having a garage sale. He's retired and their kids are grown. And he's like, well, you know, why don't you, if you really want it, come get it. So I went and got it. And of course, I kind of got to know the story and everything. It's a local dealer. I can't grab the top on the light. It has the dealer sticker on it, right from Caribou. Wow. So I asked him, I said, you know, is that your wife's bike? Did her dad buy it for her? You know, and he said, no, the neighbor bought it for his son. The little fella rode it a little while, and he actually went out probably, I don't know, it sounded like maybe like a rainy day or something. He had a little accident with it, you know, nothing major. Had a little accident, got a little dent in the tank from handlebars. And the sad part of it is that was the last time he ever rode it. He rode it, got a little scared of it, and then the little fella actually ended up with some sort of cancer and passed away. Oh yeah. And so her dad bought it for her, and she's a little tomboy, looking like my daughter, right? And she rode it quite a bit. And then her sons rode it a little bit, and then it sat up overhead of the garage for a long time. So this is more like the bike that I remember riding when I was a kid from the neighbors, way back. I don't remember what color the tank was, but I do remember it had the little Panther seat, and it had the upright motor, you know, like a typical Briggs and Stratton style motor type thing. And so, and the reason I wanted it was because when I go to shows, I wanted to bring it and put it next to my kitty cat.
Very nice.
And so, you know, you got everybody's seen the kitty cats, but the more people you talk about, they didn't know Articat even made mini bikes. So
that's true.
So my plan is just to get it down and clean it all up good. I don't want to restore it. I want it to look about the same as what it does with the sled, because they're in good enough, clean enough shape. I just want to pull the motor, rebuild it, and then clean things up a bit and kind of leave it original. And I think I'm just going to put the name of the young fella on it when I find out what his name was. Just kind of.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's a good way to remember him.
Yeah. So when I go to shows, you know, I can take the little bike. I can go and they can, you know, I'll have them at the shows for that. I think that'd be fun. So
great. I know we've got some comments coming in, and I want to do that, Mike, and then we'll go to Rob, and then we'll come back to you, Jim.
Sure. In fact, that bike we were just looking at it on the wall is a Arctic Cat Climber.
Yep.
And then the other Arctic Cat is a Prowler. We're getting people coming in here with expert opinions for us, which we really appreciate. And here's one. Arctic Cat did some of the coolest ads in Mini Bike Guide, including one with it being carried on the back of a VW that read "Think Smaller." Nice. That's from Archive Stereo, by the way. Well, cool. So yeah, Rob, if you're ready, we'll put you full screen. If you're ready to talk to us about AMSOIL.
Sure, cool. Let's see where to put the stuff. There we go. A lot of times at all the other shows we do, we talk about the AMSOIL product. The main thing we talk about is the AMSOIL signature oil. The 5W30 for the normal cars, it's warranted for 25,000 miles or 1 year. It pours at 60 below, runs 20 to 50 degrees cooler in the summertime, but it also cuts down friction and drag so the engine lasts 2 to 3 times longer and gives you better gas mileage, which people are looking for. But with the mini bikes and stuff like that, what you want is a small engine oils. This one here is a 10W30. Some of the other mini bikes have clutches in it. So ones with a clutch, you want a motorcycle oil in it because of the friction for the clutch. For some synthetics are too slippery for a clutch. So you want a motorcycle oil to put in it. The reason you want to put AMSOIL in the mini bike, it'll cut down friction and drag just like the signature oil does in the car. It'll make it run 20 to 50 degrees cooler. Every 10 degrees, you cut down the engine, that engine temperature, and that doubles the life of the engine. And it's also a high zinc oil. Those old mini bikes have lifters, cam, rockers, just like some of the hot rods do, and they need zinc in it. These ones both have about 1,200 parts per million of zinc, so it's good for the engines. And if you have a ethanol problem, we have a product called Quick Shot. This product will stop the water ethanol from separating in the tank. That way it can be burnt, because once the water separates, it turns to ethanol separates, it turns to like water, and mini bikes just don't like water in the gas tank. So you prevent that problem, because you can't buy super a lot of times without ethanol in it now. So you got to put a product in to help that. And if you want more information about AMSOIL, Mike, is there going to be a link on the bottom?
There is links in the description. And full disclosure, I have to say that I'm a dealer under you and Ben is a dealer under me. So when you sign up for AMSOIL or buy any kind of AMSOIL under Ben, all of us benefit, and we all thank you very, very much for that. Yes, there's a link for a catalog in the description.
And in the catalog has all the prices. If you want to know the best possible way to buy AMSOIL is become a preferred customer under Ben. And you can buy directly from AMSOIL and save 25% on everything you order.
Yep, those links are in the description. And I think that it's also important to note AMSOIL has a lot of other products that you'll probably end up using in the shop, such as your metal protectors, your other lubricants, and it's really worth taking a look at what products they have.
Your lube, shampoo.
That's right. They've got some great glass cleaner, some other cleaner that works on mud.
Chain spray. Yeah, mudslinger. A lot of people in the dirt bikes use the mudslinger because a dirt bike at the end of a race can weigh 50 pounds heavier. By spraying that on, the mud doesn't stick. I bet you it'd work good on a mini bike too.
Give you a competitive edge right there.
So let's at this point, I'd like to feature that video we have, Mike, from Ed Kubiez, and then we'll jump back into Jim after that. This is a video featuring a very expertise master builder. He works on many, many different mini bikes, and he always he never keeps the mini bikes. He always is either building for someone particular or he ends up selling his builds to a collector. And he told me that it's really the build that he enjoys the most. And he's quite a craftsman. I think you're going to be really impressed with this particular mini bike.
Yes, let's take a look.
Hello, everybody. I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Ed Kubiez. I build mini bikes, amongst other things. I want to thank Ben for letting me participate in this first podcast. Right now I'm outside. I'm going to take you inside out to my assembly room. Anything that is clean, polished, plated, painted, comes into this room for assembly. And got a couple things going on here. Some of you may have seen this little Indian I built not too long ago, 1971. This was a Speedway Cafe racer in the process. 1973 Indian Bambino that eventually I'll get to, or may find a new home, who knows. Oh, got a lot of memorabilia stuff here, some other fun stuff that just makes this a good experience for me in the building process. Okay, enough about me. On to a little bit about the chopper that I built for Keith. Okay, here we go. Hopefully you are all watching the mini bike on its turnstile as I speak. This build started with a very nice roller chassis that Keith, the owner, had provided. He had acquired through some local horse trading, but very straight, no prior repairs, came with the original wheels and rear brake sprocket assembly. So it was a joy to start into a build not having to deal with any of these prior frame issues, so to speak. The engine is a 1975 lighted HS40 that came off of a MTD mini bike. It was apparent upon my inspection that this was a very low hour engine, so I was able to proceed with the detailing process. We chose stainless steel silver and candy red for the paint theme on the engine to correlate with the proposed paint job on the frame that was to follow. And there's a lot of detail on this engine. I'll talk about a few things. The Kickstarter and the clutch were fully disassembled for show chrome plating. The carburetor was painted candy red with a polished bowl and a Tilliston Azusa stack. The oil fill cap is a polished aluminum Clinton engine oil cap. The oil drain plugs are chrome plated. Of course, the exhaust is also fully chrome plated. Both the polishing and the chrome were done by Grafton Metal Refinishing and Custom Chrome in Grafton, Ohio. Moving to the paint job, it is pearl white with candy red scallops. Those candy red scallops have a thin gray hand pinstriped outline that Angel Dust Cycle Paint in Elyria, Ohio provided. Continuing the white with red scallop theme, the seat was done by Phil Anderson at Anderson Custom Interiors, also here in Ohio, to match the paint scheme. The underside of the seat is also upholstered, so you never really see any of that exposed fiberglass frame that you typically do. The headlight and the gas tank chosen are slightly downsized from the original size to be what I thought was more in proportion with the mini bike. The controls are from RRP, and those are typically used on Wave Runner type vehicles. To go along with those, I used ODI is the company, lock-on grips. And they work very well, are very comfortable. The wiring for both the headlight and taillight were done in a gray cloth. wiring to match. Tires are rear slick and front rib tire to give it that old school hot rod kind of feel. And all in all, I think the goal here was to build a highly detailed, customized version of the Bonanza chopper that still lets its birthright show through. So I'm glad you all got a chance to see it. I want to thank Ben for asking me to participate. Also want to thank Keith Zybreg, the owner, for the opportunity to build such a bike. Thank you.
So, gentlemen, what do you think of that?
That's amazing.
Somebody put a lot of hours into that thing.
Yeah. Yeah, you would be the coolest kid on the street if you had one of those in the early 70s, I'll tell you.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. You
Even
know how
in
you shake
2024, you'd be the coolest kid with one.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
true. Absolutely. You know how you shake the chimney sweep's hand to get some luck? I keep on saying I want to shake Ed's hand, hope some of that good talent rubs off on me.
Yes. Yeah, we had some very nice compliments coming in. We've still got some more that we haven't looked at, actually. Let me pull some of these up. Here we go. Our good friend Virgil Shaw is saying, is that some engraving on the Kickstart? In fact, let me see if I can get that in front of us here. Where was that Kickstarter here? I know there was a nice close-up of it. We just had it there a second ago. Let me see. I think there was a closer.
I know Ed has had one engraved. I don't think it's this one. I think what that was is actually just some reflection.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah, because if you look, the earlier photo did, and I know Ed did have one engraved, but I don't believe it's on this bike.
Cool. And Virgil's also saying that's some amazing detail there. And then, of course, Mike Whiteside is saying, could you imagine being a little tyke getting something like this at Christmas time or for your birthday? That would be the Christmas of all Christmases, I think. And then the Archive Stereo is saying, love your work, Ed. And yeah, getting some nice feedback. And we thank everyone, too, for their compliments on this. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, Ed is really a craftsman, and his work is known throughout the hobby. So he's a tremendous friend and asset in the hobby. So I thank Ed for featuring this bike, and I thank Keith for allowing us to show it as well. If you look in Ed's clean room, I know you flipped back there, you saw some of his future projects. If you pan just a little further, right there. Nope, not that one. There was a green bike that was shown in the beginning of that. That's one he's currently working on. Yeah, it's on the other side of the room, somewhere there.
Right there with that bicycle.
Yeah, so I'm hoping Ed will give us a feature on that build, and we'll put a video together and maybe get Ed on a future podcast. But Thank you, Ed. You're a tremendous friend.
For sure, yeah. And Karen Krause is saying great looking bike. And yes, please keep us posted, Ed, with any kind of updates on your projects. We would love to see more of what you're doing. Yeah,
I'd like to just a couple of shout outs. Karen Krause is the host and administrator of the Old School Mini Bike and Parts page. Karen, a good friend in the hobby. I want to thank her for allowing me to promote the podcast on the list. Also, earlier we saw a comment from Jeff Mahalko, if I'm saying his last name correctly. I think I am. Jeff hosts the mini bike reunion in Windber, PA, Father's Day weekend. It actually starts Thursday and runs through Sunday. I'm sorry, Jeff, I'm not going to make it this year, but I'm hoping that many of the people attending will send us some video footage. And this might be a good time, Mike, for just going over that footage, how to do it, and also where to send it, because we'd love to feature all these bikes that are going to be seen. That gathering is huge, and it's going to be some of the best in the hobby, and the bikes that are going to be there are just going to be phenomenal.
Absolutely. Any footage that you decide to send to us, we've got an email address for you scrolling across the bottom of the screen. And one thing that we ask, I'm going to put myself full screen just for a moment. Please hold your camera horizontal like this for a wide shot. It's very difficult to work with vertical footage. I know it's more comfortable in the hand like this, but it's very difficult to work with when I edit it. The other thing is just try to keep it around 3 to 4 minutes, 5 minutes max. And we very much appreciate you sharing any kind of footage with us.
As far as the show video, uncut, send it to us uncut. We'll work with that all.
Totally.
We'll put it together. If you want to edit footage and have us air it, please send it to me at that email address.
And same if you're going to mini bike shows or events, any kind of event that's related to mini bikes, please gather some images, either still images or video for us. Again, holding your camera horizontally, and just send me the clips, send Ben the clips, and I'll edit that into a nice little presentation that we can all enjoy.
Yeah. So now, Jim, I know that you have a mini bike at your office, if I'm not mistaken, and that's one pampered cat.
A mini bike that's what?
In your office.
Yeah. Oh, yes, that's right. That's true. Yes. I think I sent you a picture of that.
Yeah, we got that showing right now, an HPE Muskin cat.
Yeah.
What's the story on that one?
400X. I traded a 1983 Yamaha three-wheeler for that, and it came to me it like powdered pink and flowered seats and just a roller, really flat tires. So I stripped it all down, and I went through everything on it, put new tires, and had a friend paint it. This was before I had able to do any powder coating, so I had him paint it all. And then I said, well, the worst part about these old bikes for me is I cannot find the original style motors that go to them. I look around here and I think, there's got to be motors in barns and stuff, and I just am unable to find what needs to go in them to make them 100% right. So again, you all go to the Predator motor or whatever, and you grab it and just kind of build it. And I've had this one running down my road here out, excuse me, in the country, set up the way it's set up. It'll do 45 miles an hour, almost on a wheelie, for crying out loud. It's crazy. It's a hand grenade ready to explode. That's probably doesn't seem too fast, but on a on those little tiny wheels there, it seems like when you're on an old road in the country, it seems like it's pretty fast. So
yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, so I put that in the corner of my office. I never really rode it much. Taken it to a couple of shows here, and I get a lot of comments when they come into my office. People come in and, what's the deal with a mini bike?
Nice, good conversation starter.
It is, yeah.
Well, you mentioned the Predator motors. First of all, the vintage hobby has exploded, in my opinion, over the last 10 years or so. More so even the past few. It's very challenging sometimes to afford, some of the parts involved in fully restoring something to authentic original. And as far as I'm concerned, there's room for everybody in the hobby. The mini bike hobby is very diverse. Yes, this is the Vintage Mini Bike Lovers podcast. We all appreciate vintage things. And I know, Jim, you in your snowmobile realm, as far as finding parts and accuracy, you understand what it takes to really restore something correctly. But it is very challenging. And as far as I'm concerned, we've got a lot of young people coming in, and the newer mini bikes, the same conversation happens in cars, snowmobiles, whatever we're talking about is what exactly is vintage, and some groups have it defined a certain way, and, you don't quite fit in the mix. As far as I'm concerned, this podcast will feature the people that are involved in the vintage hobby, and, their interests are going to be diverse. And so, the views expressed by our viewers are not necessarily those of the host and vice versa. But I think the nice thing is,
depend on what your age is.
Well, it may, right? But I'm of an age where I started in mini bikes when I was about 5, riding one of those little mini Indian Bambinos, and I was probably my dad's best salesman because he was selling those. And he'd say, Tommy, go show how your mini bike rides, and I'd jump on that thing. I could start it as a young kid, and I'd ride around the parking lot and instant sale, So again, I think the hobby needs to be very inclusive. So I hope the audience will understand that we will delve into vintage. We will go the whole gamut, and I hope that everyone respects the reasoning. It's because we really want to feature the people that are involved, and the richness is their stories, what their story is, and that will vary. So, Jim, do you have any more show and tell for us there?
Well, I kind of brought a few things, and then
Nice.
I was hoping to be on again some other time. So
Oh
I
yeah,
kind of
we'll get
left a
you.
few
We
other
we
things
definitely can do that.
away.
There's that
I do have some.
remote broadcast we want to do from the restaurant, right? And see some of the things you have in the back warehouse.
Yes, yeah, that would be great. That'd be great. I've got some friends with some old mini bikes, old three wheelers. I've got. I had it on the vintage podcast because it was here in my garage, but it's actually the world's first production three wheeler. It's called the Tricart, so I read the story on how that came about and stuff. So I have one of those that's almost all original with the exception of the motor because the motor was blown back in the day, and then they had somebody take the jack shaft out and put like a little Briggs motor in there, and so to get it going again, I put a torque converter on a newer style motor and put it in there, and at least I can ride it around. So I've got things like that. I got some older go karts that I've been working on. You've probably seen in the background where my little dune buggy, and I've got this electric gem car here, 1999. That's 25 years old, so that's getting into the realm.
It sure is.
Yeah.
So, just things like that. So yeah, I'd love to be on again if you guys aren't able to make it up here and be able to show some other things.
For sure. And we do have a question that's come in. Archive Stereo is saying, Jim, do you have the Snowmobile Museum up north? Is that restaurant where all those sleds are?
It's not a museum, no. The restaurant belongs to my buddy, and the building was going to be a storage building. It quickly became a restaurant and then a bowling alley, but then, as you've seen in the past, there's a huge amount of space out back that we get all the snowmobiles out there, and there's still a lot of dirt on them left over from the contract. Some of them have been cleaned because I'd reach in and I'd grab one or two to take to a vintage show somewhere. But essentially, the hopes is to get that place tidied up enough where we can get the sleds clean and kind of open it up, for different people to go through and see. Right now, we just kind of, if somebody's there and they want to see it, we'll just take them out back and walk them through what's there and show them. Not really opened up as a museum or anything.
Sure. And on the Vintage Snowmobile podcast, we've been back there several times with Jim giving us a tour, which is a great deal of fun. There's a lot of nice sleds in there.
Very much so, for sure. So we can shift gears, and we have some footage from my friend Dan Przyojski at All About Mini Bikes, and I want to thank Dan for helping promote the podcast and to share this video footage on his YouTube channel. I encourage you to subscribe. The link is in the description. He has all kinds of great content. Dan and I are planning to have him featured on an upcoming podcast. He's actually built a prototype mini bike, which is styled after the vintage mini bikes, and he took the best of the best and is crafting his own, and he's actually going out to market with these. Hopefully, he's hoping sometime later this year or early next year. So please check out his channels. He's got a great YouTube channel with a lot of content, and he has a great Facebook page and website as well. But why don't we run that footage? This is of the 2024 Old School Show in Belleville, Michigan. So the amount of bikes there is just unbelievable at that show.
Yeah, this is great. And while I'm queuing this up, links to everything he just described in the description of this video. Links to his website, his Facebook, and his YouTube. Very much worth a look to all of those. But yeah, let's look at this video.
That's you, Wayne, right there, man.
Did body work too and paint. But the blue, you know how they used to do it in place? Yes.
Says. I'm still racing. 2024 old school mini bike in Belleville, Michigan. Quite a crowd today. A lot of nice bikes. We saw that. We went back there. We saw that. Yeah, right? Yeah.
But I want to go maybe this year.
Heard to do a little bit as we're going along. 2024 mini bike swap meet, Belleville, Michigan. This is the outside.
One of the big Coleman's, kind of like.
Is that the cart you got over there?
Yeah, the
Red one? Cool. Is that a Yerf dog or something, I wonder?
I could use some tires, but
Why? Well, hold on 1 second. So what did Stevie bring? Is it going to fit in there?
oh, his truck.
No, okay. It brought a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah. You know, we bought both the boys from Dallas. We bought, Gracie the Black
Quite a nice mix of bikes in there. Actually, if you go to the very beginning, just slight right there. No, I'm Ed Kubiez's right there. It is. That's Ed Kubiez's little Indian that we saw in his clean room. Ed regularly attends the show.
Yeah, some amazing bikes in there. Takes you right back to our childhood in the late 60s and early 70s when these were the coolest thing out there.
Yeah, now that show is, I believe, held at Allied Leisure, if I'm not mistaken. And one of the principles of the Little Indian line of mini bikes is what was shown with Dan in the middle with the banner.
Sure.
And the brothers were in business together building that line of bikes. And then it changed hands sometimes in the early to mid 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ray and me just.
Now, Rob and Jim, reactions to any of this that we're looking at here?
I've never seen a mini bike show like that before. There was a lot of chrome in that mini bike. I don't think they let the kids use those ones. And was that a custom made one with a sidecar on it, or did they actually make a mini bike like that?
I believe the Scat Kitty mini bikes did have a sidecar, which are very rare. And I was talking with a friend, Paul Weiner. He actually had some reproduced, and that was a bike that he was regularly restoring. Mike is correcting me here. Wayne County Fairgrounds is where that show is held. Mike Whiteside commenting, very, very nice. Thank you for that.
I would go broke in a swap meet like that.
Yes.
Virgil is suggesting we take it to the drag strip, the woman who passed theirs. I'm with you, Virgil. Yeah, and Gregory's saying that it was at the fairgrounds, not at Allied.
Now, there was one bike there that, and I don't know a lot about these, but it looked like kind of an extreme drag strip kind of an experience. Trying to find it. It looked a lot
wider
different.
than most of them.
Yes, it looked like a massive engine inside there too.
Yeah, it's very popular. There's several drag strips in the Northeast that have been featuring.
Right
there it is.
Yeah, very, very nice. I'd love to know a little bit more about what's actually packed in there. That looks like a lot of engine.
Yeah, looks like that's built for speed. It's got some wheelie bars, I think, in the back there. If I understand what I'm looking at there.
Yeah.
The only mini about that is the size, not the motor.
Yes.
Yeah, well, as you can see, the hobby is very, very good. So I thank you, Jeff. I'm seeing a comment from Jeff about the mini bike reunion in Wimber, PA, and he is going to get us a video, and that would be excellent. I'd love to have you on, Jeff, and talk about your collection and talk about the background of the mini bike reunion. I believe, tell me in the comments, is this the 8th, 10th, 11th? I know you've been doing this for a number of years. Your family's very involved in it, and it's a huge gathering and a welcome gathering in the hobby. Many, many people from throughout the Northeast and the rest of the country, and I believe Canada, come down for that.
Nice. And a thought, too, about these mini bike events. If you know of any events or if you're putting on events, please let us know either in the comments while we're live like this or email them. Let me put that email address back up. Because we'd also like to be kind of a clearinghouse for anything to do with mini bikes, especially events that are coming up.
For sure. And the nice thing about mini bike Facebook page is on the Vintage Mini Bike Lovers page, I will feature any events. If I join your event, it now becomes part of my event page. And so that's the great thing through the Facebook algorithm. We can make sure that everybody has notice of these because we obviously a lot of time and energy goes into putting them together. So we want people to attend our shows when they're, I know when I'm organizing something, I like people to attend it. And a lot of times, people say they didn't know or whatever. So let's make sure that if there's events around the country, please send those to me so that we can make sure that we post those events. And 24th. Wow, Jeff, that is awesome. 24 years. That is amazing. Truly amazing.
And one thing to add.
Vintage.
Go ahead, Rob.
The show's a vintage show.
It is. Yes. Even the show is vintage. Yes. And to add to what he was just saying is one of the things that's become kind of a phenomenon, if you will, with the Vintage Snowmobile podcast that I do, is we've kind of become known now as the place to look to see what's going on in this hobby. So what I'm saying is that people are sending me images and video clips from all of these shows across the U.S. and Canada, and my Vintage Snowmobile podcast is the place to view that. So we would like to do something very similar here with the Mini Bike podcast. So please keep that in mind. Any shows that you're going to or anything that's coming up, please let us know, and we'll help you promote it.
Yeah, and I want to thank the viewers. This is a new venture. When someone says, "Hey, I'm going to do a podcast," what do you really think? I know when I see somebody say, "Hey, I'm going to do a podcast," I say, "Well, I like to do that, but I don't always do it." So I really want to thank the viewers that did participate today. These will go into replay, and we will be able to share that on the various channels, including the Vintage Mini Bike Lovers podcast channel, which is on not only Facebook, but also I have a YouTube channel that we're building. And Mike has been gracious about letting me share all this content on his channels, which is the Wheels, Keels, and Snowmobiles channel, as well as his Vintage Snowmobile Lovers page. And I believe his YouTube channels will continue to share too. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it. Archive Stereo is a gentleman that I hope to have featured on the podcast. He's going to do a feature video for us. He is breaking down and indexing all of the mini bike guidebooks that were published years ago. And so I asked him a simple question about ads for a trail horse. And within a matter of minutes, he told me every single issue and every page number where the ads were. So that's a tremendous project. And so show his page some love. It's the Mini Bike Guide. And we'll make sure that we put the link to his pages in. And I know he's working on sending me a little bit of a video about his project. And I think that's a tremendous effort.
Yeah, for sure.
So we're coming up on the top of the hour. Rob, do you have any mini bike stories? I know you've been very involved in motorsports over the years.
Yes, but I didn't realize there was that many vintage mini bikes out there. Every mini bike I had ended up breaking. So,
well, what's interesting is you saw that Jim, you're planning on bringing your Arctic Cat to the shows, and I think that's the trend more, not only with snowmobile shows, but also with the muscle car shows. I'm seeing the vintage cruise ins, the cruise nights. People are bringing a Ranchero or an El Camino and they're putting a mini bike on the back, or I've seen them on pickup trucks or other specialty vehicles that have been restored. It's a nice way to relive our childhoods and to keep a little bit of the past alive. I think that's so important, the history. I know when I drive down the road, I'd like to see cars even from the 70s or 80s, but it's rare, right? So if we don't preserve this history, this history is our heritage, as a people. And so I really think that that's the other nice thing about being involved in these hobbies, is that we're really preserving a piece of history and heritage and something that is tangible that we can pass on to the next generations. And so I'm really excited, Jim, that you have your granddaughter already interested, in riding a mini bike and doing that. That's so important that kids have that broad base of experiences, which helps them, become well-rounded, and you think of kids nowadays that they're stuck in, a room with a video game, and that's the only thing they do. And I'm blessed to be involved in so many different things. And yeah, there's kids doing that, but there's also kids doing some real tangible things. I've asked a young man that restores mini bikes, Jaden Simpkins. He's restored a couple already. And I think he's 16 this year. And he started when he was a teenager, early teens, So I think that's important that we, pass the torch on to the young people and we consider, how that's going to be remembered, for history's sake. Thank you very much for joining us, Jeff. Jeff is saying, great evening, keep the wheels and wrenches turning, back to the garage for him. So yes, Jeff, I'm looking forward to featuring the mini bike reunion, and hopefully we can get a one-on-one with you and your collection as well. So thank you for joining us. So keep those comments coming in. I'd really appreciate feedback as we move forward. Again, I'm planning various segments that will enjoy video content, talking with different people about different things. There's so many how-to things that people have questions about. What do you use for vintage clutches? Is there a clutch that is modern day? Can you upgrade some things without compromising the vintage nature of things? And just like in other hobbies, some things have to be maintained. So your chain, your clutch, things of that nature, tires. It's not easy to find a vintage tire that's actually writable. So little things like that, I think, are important, that we, develop the knowledge base so that as we go forward, everyone has a way to enjoy the hobby.
Sure. I wanted to add also, if you're enjoying this tonight and want more, we've got a few more episodes on the horizon. I've got a calendar open here. Let me look at the dates. The next time we go live with this podcast will be July 14th, which is a Sunday, 8 p.m. After that, it would be, we're looking for the second Sunday of the month here for the next few months. So August 11th, 8 p.m. Eastern time. And cooperate, please, calendar. Here we go. September the 8th, 8 p.m. Eastern time. And beyond that, we're not sure, but that's what we've committed to at this point. We'll see how it goes. I think engagement from you will have a lot to say about how this goes moving forward. So we invite and encourage and thank you in advance for your engagement on this podcast. If you're enjoying this, please stay involved with us. We love all of your comments and feedback. Also, contributions. If you know anything about the history, if you're sitting on kind of a nugget of history that pertains to mini bikes, please share it with us. If you have images or stories, anything like that. Got a few last minute comments coming in. Karen Krause saying great show. David Trim says very interesting. Enjoyed the show. Thank you. We appreciate you being in here.
Well, with that, I'd like to thank you, Jim, for sharing your collection and your time with us. And I certainly look forward to having you on the podcast again. Rob, I appreciate all your insight and knowledge in the field, and you bring a lot to the table as well. So now that now that you have a little taste of what's out there in the States, maybe, up north, we can get a little featured on some of the shows up there. We can get some connections with some of the collectors up there, because I know mini bikes are just as big up there. The Keystone, in fact, was marketed up there quite a bit, I believe, is primarily up there and also in Australia. So there's also the Motoskeeter is another one that was from the north. So I look forward to featuring some of those. And Mike, I can't thank you enough for supporting me in this collaboration that we're doing. I feel like we have some momentum building, and it will be the test of time. Hopefully we'll get some, good feedback from the viewers. We'll get viewers content coming in, and I look forward to our next show. So thank you, gentlemen. Have a good night.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Thanks a lot.